to do this satellite program, and I'm going to do my best, and all of the people that work with me. If we do that, but then I think I've done a job.
When Elvis Presley passed on, the world cried for the king of rock and roll. But what most people don't know is that Elvis had one very strange request for his funeral. Even his close friends were shocked. This secret was kept inside Graceland for years. It shows a side of Elvis that no one expected. What did he ask for before saying goodbye? Join us as we share the one surprising thing Elvis wanted at his funeral, the secret that still shocks fans today. When Elvis Presley passed away at just 42 years, the world stopped spinning for a moment. The king of rock and roll, gone in an instant. But as his fans wept and mourned, a quieter mystery was unfolding behind closed doors, a deeply personal and shocking funeral request that would shake even the people closest to him. Of all those who were around Presley, there's one person who knew more personal details about him: Nancy Rooks. Rooks worked as a housekeeper at Graceland for 10 years. She didn't just clean up after Elvis, she heard his secrets, saw the private side of the Presley family, and eventually became a trusted witness to his final wishes. And one of those wishes? Elvis did not want to be buried underground, that's right. The man who shook up the world with his music also wanted to shake tradition when it came to his final resting place. I heard him say it more than once, Nancy later revealed in her book. He didn't want to be in the ground, and other people in the family heard it too. That wasn't a casual preference. It was a full request, one that Elvis had voiced with deep conviction. His father, Vernon Presley, took this seriously. After Elvis passed, Vernon arranged for an above-ground burial place at Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis. Elvis was placed inside a mausoleum, an impressive building housing a tomb or group of tombs, and shortly afterward his mother Gladys was also moved there to rest just beneath her son. Vernon had honored Elvis's final wish, at least for a moment, but what happened next could be straight out of a Hollywood thriller. Less than 2 weeks after the funeral, Memphis police received word of a plot that someone was planning to steal Elvis's body. Not just a crazy rumor. A real plan to break into the burial place, steal the king's remains, and hold him for ransom. It was shocking, and it left Vernon shaken, and as such, he had to act fast. Graceland, once just a home, was about to become something much more. Vernon decided to move both Elvis and Gladys to Graceland's meditation garden. But here's the twist. Remember Elvis's request for an above-ground resting place? It couldn't be honored anymore. Vernon had hoped to build a grand burial place on the property, but time was running out. Nancy Rooks went further to state Vernon got several bids, but they were too expensive, and security-wise, burying him underground was safer. For a man like Elvis Presley, even in his demise, fame was a burden. There was just no peace, not yet. So Vernon made a heartbreaking choice. He buried Elvis in the ground. Yes, the very thing Elvis had asked not to happen. Nancy remembered how hard it was for Vernon. He said to me, "Nancy, they don't understand. I need to bring my son and his mama home." It was more than logistics. It was grief. Vernon was trying to protect Elvis in his passing, the way he'd protected him in life. By the break of October 2nd, 1977, the time came, but it wasn't a big public event. There were no screaming fans, no cameras flashing, just a few folding chairs around the meditation garden, some simple flowers, and a quiet group of family members. Vernon, Aunt Delta, and Grandma Minnie sat in silence as 2 white horses pulled the caskets up the driveway. News reporters had found out about the reburial, so everything was rushed. It was supposed to happen a day later, but Vernon moved fast. He didn't want this moment to turn into something else. Nancy described it as eerie, something strange and frightening. She stood by the open burial vault, peeking into the space that would soon hold Elvis forever. "It felt cold, I can't explain it," she said. "Just looking down there, knowing he'd be placed in that hole, it didn't feel right. But sometimes life or the afterlife doesn't give us what we ask for." Vernon did what he could. This was no ordinary garden anymore. It was becoming a Presley sanctuary. Now here's a little goosebump moment. Vernon had always planned for 4 graves to go in that garden: Elvis, Gladys, himself, and Grandma Minnie May. But the story doesn't stop there. Elvis may have been buried underground against his will, but his wish, his need for peace, was being protected in other ways. By the break of 1979, Vernon passed away and was laid to rest in the garden beside his son. Minnie May followed in 1980. The family was together even in afterlife. Then came a twist that had fans talking. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife, requested to be buried at Graceland too. Some people were confused, others raised eyebrows. But after her daughter's passing, it made sense. Priscilla had spent years guarding Elvis's legacy, and now she wanted to rest close to him. According to documents signed in August 2023, Priscilla will be buried in a way that keeps her near Elvis without changing any current grave sites. The final piece of the Presley puzzle was falling into place. We're not done yet. Wait until you hear what else the Presley family tried to do to honor Elvis's final wishes. And yes, there's more to this. After Elvis Presley's body was laid in Graceland, Nancy talks about how some activities he engaged in at Graceland. After Elvis Presley's body was moved to the meditation garden at Graceland, most people thought the drama was over. But behind the scenes, the Presley family was only just beginning to understand what it meant to carry out the king's final wishes. This wasn't just about where to bury him, it was about how to keep his legacy safe, sacred, and surrounded by love. Now that Elvis had been laid to rest at Graceland, Vernon Presley focused on transforming the burial area into something far greater than a simple grave. He wanted a place that felt like a peaceful escape, almost like a temple. Elvis had always loved the idea of spiritual places. He read books on prayer, Eastern religion, and philosophy. So, Vernon tried to bring some of that peace into the garden, and that's when he got creative. Many fans don't realize that the meditation garden wasn't part of the original Graceland design. It was slowly transformed after Elvis's passing. Vernon worked with local builders and garden planners to give it a soft, almost holy feeling. He had stones reshaped, lights dimmed to create a glow in the evening, and even changed the layout to better reflect peace. It wasn't flashy, just beautiful and meaningful. There were no giant gold statues, no velvet ropes, just a simple round fountain, trees rustling in the Memphis breeze, and family watching from windows above. Vernon wanted the space to say, this was a man who lived loud but rested quietly. One of the most touching additions was the bronze memorial plaque for Jesse Garon Presley, Elvis's twin brother, who passed on at birth. Although Jesse's body was never found, Vernon created a marker to place beside Elvis. It wasn't just symbolic. It gave Elvis the chance to lie beside the brother he never got to know, the one he always talked about because family mattered to Elvis. Elvis's closest friends said he often felt something missing, like he was only half of something bigger. Maybe that's why his music felt so full of longing. That empty space stayed with him all his life. So when Jesse's name was added to the garden, it wasn't for the public, it was for Elvis. Vernon also made sure that certain religious touches were added. A white marble statue of Jesus stood tall near the graves, surrounded by two stone angels. These were the same statues that once stood by Elvis and Gladys at Forest Hill before they were moved. Vernon insisted they be brought to Graceland. He believed Elvis would have wanted it that way, but grief didn't stop there. Privately, Vernon worried about how the fans would respond. Would they understand why Elvis had to be buried underground when he had clearly asked not to be? Would they be angry, disappointed? So this was how the decision to open the meditation garden to the public for 1 hour each morning, free of charge, came in. No tour guide, no flashing lights, just silence. Fans could walk through the iron gates and visit the grave. They could pray, cry, or just stand there thinking about the man who had changed their lives. This decision was a deeply personal one. Vernon said more than once, "Let them come. It helps them. It helps me too." Those who visited in those early years said the atmosphere felt different and thicker somehow. People spoke in whispers. Some left handwritten notes. Others knelt down and whispered their thanks. Presley talks about making people happy. Even now, decades later, fans still describe the meditation garden as the most emotional part of visiting Graceland. But there was more after Vernon planned where the first 4 graves were to be placed. But that wasn't all. He began talking about where other family members could go, without ever turning the garden into a crowded space. There was even talk of creating a second garden nearby if needed for future generations. He wanted to keep the Presley legacy united, not scattered across cemeteries or faraway burial places. In Vernon's mind, Graceland was more than just a home. It was sacred ground. Meanwhile, inside Graceland, certain rooms were changed too. The curtains in Elvis's bedroom were never opened again. Nancy Rook said the family kept that part of the house locked and untouched for years. Vernon didn't even let the cleaning staff go in there. It felt like he was still there, she once said. We could almost hear him walking down the stairs. Some members of the family took to visiting the garden late at night. Not for any ritual, just to sit. Aunt Delta was known to bring a chair and just watch the moonlight hit the water. She'd sit there for hours, wrapped in a shawl, sometimes talking out loud, sometimes silent. Even Lisa Marie, who was just a young girl at the time, would walk quietly among the graves, asking questions no child should have to ask. Why can't he come back? Where's Uncle Jesse? Why does the ground make it so hard to see him? It was heavy, too heavy for a child. But Elvis's wish, even if broken in form, was still being honored in spirit. He was home, and everyone around him was doing their best to make that home holy. It wasn't long before fans started noticing strange things in the garden. Some said they heard music, others felt a chill or saw the fountain suddenly stop flowing, only to start again seconds later. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, it's clear that Elvis's spirit never really left Graceland. Some even claimed they saw candle flames move in patterns. Others swore the roses at his grave bloomed faster than anywhere else in Memphis. Maybe it was magic, maybe it was grief, or maybe it was the king's way of saying, "I'm still here." By the time the world slowly stopped weeping for Elvis Presley, the meditation garden had become more than just a resting place. It had grown into a living story, one that kept adding chapters even decades after Elvis's passing. While the original focus was on preserving his peace, the years that followed brought new twists, emotional turns, and family secrets no one expected. And it all began when the next Presley entered the garden. By the break of summer 2020, Benjamin Keough, Elvis's only grandson, was buried at Graceland. The world barely knew his face, but fans felt a deep connection to him. He looked so much like Elvis that some people called him Elvis Reborn. His passing came as a shock to the Presley family, and sparking a wave of sorrow that mirrored what they had felt back in 1977. Benjamin's burial broke a long silence. For more than 40 years, no one else had been laid to rest at the garden. The grief reopened old wounds. But this time there was a twist. Benjamin was buried above ground, something Elvis had originally wanted for himself but never received. It was almost as if fate was correcting itself, honoring the king's wishes through his grandson. Benjamin's tomb became a quiet but powerful reminder of the pain the Presley family still carried. It also stirred conversation about whether the meditation garden would continue accepting future burials and how that would affect the sacred space. Then came January 2023. Lisa Marie Presley, the only child of Elvis and the sole heir to Graceland, passed on suddenly at the age of 54. The world paused again. For the second time in less than 3 years, the Presley family prepared to bury one of their own. But this time, things were different. Lisa Marie's burial was personal, public, and powerful all at once. She was laid to rest beside Benjamin, and fans immediately noticed something important. She had been buried in the same garden as her father, even though she had lived a complicated life filled with public pressure and heartbreak. This wasn't just another grave, this was Elvis's daughter. The one he adored, wrote letters to Fimram the Road, and often called his baby girl in private. The one who sat on his lap during long rehearsals and sang along to gospel songs in the kitchen. Her presence in the meditation garden wasn't just emotional, it was symbolic. The family circle had finally started to come full, and yet the garden still had more surprises. In the months after Lisa Marie's passing, news broke of a quiet legal negotiation happening behind the scenes. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's former wife and Lisa Marie's mother, was seeking a place in the garden too. Some fans questioned it. After all, she and Elvis had divorced years before his passing. Others understood it perfectly. Priscilla had protected the Presley name for decades. She had helped turn Graceland into a thriving historical landmark. She had fought for Lisa Marie's rights, stood by Benjamin's memory, and even helped secure Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, as the official trustee of the estate. According to court records finalized, Priscilla was granted her wish. She would be buried at Graceland when her time came. And not just anywhere in the garden, her plot would be as close as possible to Elvis's, without disturbing the graves already in place. Let that sink in. The woman who once walked out of Elvis's life only to spend years guarding it from afar will one day be laid to rest beside him. That's not just a decision, that's a statement. A full circle moment wrapped in decades of history, heartache, and unfinished conversations. Fans had mixed reactions. Some welcomed the decision, saying it honored the deep connection Elvis and Priscilla once shared. Others believed it was a private family matter, not up for debate. But one thing was clear. The meditation garden was no longer just about Elvis. It had grown into a living family archive, a place where generations of Presleys would reunite in the afterlife, even if they had drifted in life. And yet the garden may still hold more secrets. More secrets held in Graceland. Nancy talks about his personality. Graceland officials have never confirmed how many burial plots remain in the garden. Some believe there are 2 or 3 spaces left. hidden behind hedges or built into future plans. Others say the family is already discussing ways to expand the garden into nearby green space, quietly preparing for decades ahead. There's also talk, unofficial of course, that Riley Keough may one day be buried there alongside her mother and brother. If that happens, the meditation garden will include 4 generations of Presleys, all within arm's reach of Elvis himself. But here's where the story gets even stranger. Over the years, fans have left behind not just flowers, but recordings. Some visitors claim to have picked up unexplained sounds near Elvis's grave. A few say they heard faint gospel music. Others describe hearing whispers or a low sound when no one else was around. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, the garden has a reputation for more than just peace. It has a pulse. Graceland staff rarely comment on such things, but privately they admit the garden feels alive. One groundskeeper once confessed, "Every now and then the wind moves differently through here, like it's carrying a message." There's also a hidden rule at Graceland: no flash photography in the meditation garden at night. While the official reason is respect for the lifeless, longtime staff members say it's also to discourage people from trying to capture spirits on camera. Whether myth or not, the energy is real, and visitors can feel it. Now, with Priscilla's future burial confirmed, the garden story isn't just about Elvis anymore. It's about legacy, memory, and how grief evolves over time. Each new grave tells a fresh chapter. Each name carved in stone reminds us that even icons need family, even kings. The one shocking thing Elvis asked for at his funeral, to stay above the ground, was denied, but what he received instead was something no amount of money or marble could guarantee: a resting place surrounded by love, protected, honored, remembered, and as it turns out, never alone. The meditation garden. When Elvis Presley passed, the world stopped. But while millions mourned around the globe, something quiet, spiritual, and deeply personal was taking place behind the walls of Graceland. The meditation garden, Elvis's favorite retreat, became more than just a peaceful corner of his home. It turned into a sacred space, one that grew in meaning with every passing year. Most fans know it as the place where Elvis is buried, but very few know how many small, touching, and sometimes surprising traditions have been connected to it over time. The meditation garden, with its peaceful fountains and trees, was Elvis's favorite place to relax. He always loved this area by the pool, Nancy said. Nancy talks about what Presley loved doing. By 1978, Vernon made it official. He opened the meditation garden to the public, free of charge. Fans could walk up in the morning between 7:30 and 8:30 to pay their respects. The line formed early, with people whispering, crying, and leaving flowers. A silent thank you to the man whose voice changed music forever. At first, the meditation garden wasn't built for this at all. Elvis had it designed in the mid-60s as a private place where he could pray, reflect, or just sit quietly after long tours. It featured beautiful curved brickwork, a peaceful water fountain, statues, and stained glass windows placed in open arches. The whole setting felt like something out of a dream, and it was placed away behind the mansion near the pool. Elvis often came there in the evenings, sometimes alone, sometimes with close friends or family. He'd walk barefoot on the grass or sit on one of the stone benches. He would play gospel music nearby, sing softly to himself, or just stay silent for hours. Even though he was one of the most famous people on earth, this small garden was where he felt normal again. Years later, when it became his final resting place, every part of that space suddenly held deeper meaning. But what most people don't realize is that Elvis had very specific ideas about what kind of energy he wanted around him, even in the afterlife. After Elvis's burial, the garden became a destination for mourning, but also for peace. Fans began visiting in growing numbers. Some brought flowers, others brought handwritten letters. A few even left things like scarves, toy guitars, or Elvis records placed gently on the grass. These small items weren't just tributes, they were part of what turned the meditation garden into a living memory. Each morning, the staff at Graceland would walk through the garden to gently collect the items left behind. These weren't thrown away. Many were saved in storage, boxed up by year, or placed in Graceland's archive. Some of the most emotional pieces included child drawings, military medals, wedding photos, and many others. These were kept as reminders of how far Elvis's reach had spread. Something else began to happen too. Visitors started forming quiet traditions of their own. Many fans came barefoot, just like Elvis used to. Some walked the edges of the garden counterclockwise 3 times, whispering prayers. Others stood silently in front of his grave with their hands on their hearts, tears rolling down their faces. No signs told them to do this. It was all instinct. It was grief meeting respect. There was a quiet rule among returning fans. No loud laughter, no selfies, and no running. The garden was treated more like a church than a tourist spot. Even children who came with their parents seemed to pick up the stillness of the space. It was as if everyone understood that something special lived there. Over the years, the garden began to respond in unusual ways. Some longtime visitors swore they could feel a shift in the air whenever they crossed into the center of the garden. Others talked about a soft breeze that came from nowhere, or a faint scent of Elvis's favorite cologne that floated in the air. Staff didn't confirm these stories, but they didn't deny them either. One former groundskeeper who worked there for 15 years once said that no matter how many times he passed through the meditation garden, he never felt alone. Even if no one's standing there, it never feels empty, he shared. There's always something holding space with you. In the early 2000s, candles began showing up during Elvis Week. Visitors would line the path leading to the garden with small, battery-operated lights or real flame candles, often staying long after the sun went down. Eventually, this turned into the official candlelight vigil, held every August in memory of Elvis's passing. Thousands walk quietly to the garden, each holding a flame. The effect is both beautiful and emotional, like the whole place is glowing in prayer. Another interesting detail is how the garden continues to grow, not just in meaning but in design. The staff at Graceland updates the plants every season. In spring, you'll find fresh tulips and daffodils. In summer, roses and hydrangeas bloom near the statues. Fall brings golden leaves, while winter is kept soft and clean with evergreens and white lights. Everything is planned to make the garden feel alive, not cold or final. One corner of the garden is planted with Elvis's favorite flower, pink carnations. This small patch sits a bit hidden behind the main grave markers, and not every visitor spots it. But those who do often bend down to touch a petal or leave one of their own in return. In recent years, fans have begun sharing short messages in notebooks or visitor logs placed near the entrance during memorial events. These books are filled with notes like, "I miss you, King, thank you for the music," or "My mother danced to your songs every Saturday." Some of the letters are long, telling stories of love, healing, or even miracles that happened because of Elvis's music. All of them were written with sincerity. The garden has also become a place of closure for many families. It's not uncommon to see someone spreading a small handful of ashes near the trees, usually of a parent or grandparent who adored Elvis and wanted part of them to be left with him. While this isn't part of the official rules, the staff has often turned a kind eye, understanding how meaningful the act is for grieving fans. During private tours or VIP events, visitors sometimes get a longer time in the garden. One woman once sang "Can't Help Falling in Love" softly at the edge of the fountain. A few others have brought small instruments like harmonicas and played a song for Elvis as a goodbye. No one interrupts. Even strangers stay silent, listening, as someone offers their own music back to the man who gave so much of it to the world. There's also a story that was quietly passed around Graceland about a little boy who visited the garden with his parents. He didn't know much about Elvis, but saw a photo of the singer and said, "He looks like someone who gives big hugs." The simplicity of that line made one of the tour guides cry. Elvis's grave itself is simple but elegant. Bronze lettering spells out his name, and the headstone is long and low, surrounded by a small flower bed. There are no gates or chains, as such visitors can walk right up to it, touch it, kneel beside it, pray. It's rare for a celebrity's grave to be this accessible, and that's part of what makes it feel so personal. What many fans don't know is that the placement of the grave was carefully chosen based on where Elvis liked to sit. According to a former staff member, Elvis often sat in a particular spot near the fountain at night, with his back to the pool and his face toward the garden. That exact line of sight is where his headstone now faces. It's not just symbolic, it's familiar. He's resting where he used to find peace. Though the garden has seen many changes over the decades, one thing has never shifted: its role as a private space wrapped in public love. It's a place where music fans, dreamers, and broken hearts come to feel something real. And for many, it's the one place on Earth where Elvis Presley still feels alive. Every year, new fans arrive. Some are young, having discovered his music on old records or online videos. Others are elderly, coming to say goodbye one last time. Some couples get engaged there, some scatter ashes, others leave behind only tears, but no one walks away unmoved. The meditation garden may have started as a quiet space for Elvis to reflect, but now it's a space that reflects all of us, our love, our sorrow, and our longing to hold on to something that time can't erase. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just about remembering Elvis, it's about remembering ourselves in the moments when his voice gave us strength. So here we are. Elvis's shocking funeral request was never fully fulfilled, but his family, broken yet bound, has done everything possible to keep him safe, to honor him, and to bring him home. And as the sun rises each morning over the meditation garden, fans still walk quietly past his grave. They come not just for the music, they come for the mystery, the secrets, the soul of Graceland. What are your best memories of Elvis Presley? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.